morning, everyone. What an exciting day. Very happy to be here with all of you to share the key insights that we have from science to well-being. We're going to be deep diving into two key topics. Number one is how UVB technology impacts us and the world around us. And the second topic will be VitaUp. We are at a turning point where technology and well-being are intersecting perfectly with one another. And I hope that this session will leave you with a lot of insights and very cool knowledge that you'll be able to apply both in your personal lives, professional lives, and it will also enable you to bring value-added, differentiated products to the market. So before we dive into the content of the presentation, I would just like to briefly introduce the presenters. Since I'm already talking, my name is Sadaf. I'm the product manager for indoor modules and LED panels. And I have over 9 years of work experience, and I have been with Signify for about 3 years now. Now over to you, Remy.
Yes, thank you, Sadaf. So my name is Remy. I'm a principal scientist, and I'm working in the research department of Signify. I have a long history already in lighting, and my background is mainly in chemistry and health science. And the last 10 years, I've been focusing on the health and well-being domain for human-centric lighting. Back to you, Sadaf.
Yes, thank you so much. Now, I would like to talk a little bit about light before we dive into the topics of the day. So we know that light is very, very, very important part of our lives, and it is almost as important as other crucial factors like food, water, and air, if not more. However, in today's session, we will be focusing about one key aspect. So we know that light has different aspects. It impacts us visually, emotionally, biologically. But today, we'll be focusing on one key factor, that is the biological one. So just to put things into perspective, sunlight, it has the visible spectrum and the invisible spectrum. The visible spectrum enables us to see, it navigates our circadian rhythm, tells us to when to sleep and when to wake up. And the invisible spectrum that has UVB, UVA, infrared, that impacts the skin healing, generation of vitamin D in the body, along with many other biological instances. Therefore, today, in the agenda or during the session of this webinar, we will be focusing on the science of UV and in particular UVB and how UVB exposure impacts our health and well-being. In the second part, we'll be talking about the product in which this amazing technology is embedded. So Philips VitaUp will be the focus. And I'm sure after these two sessions, you will be having a lot of questions. So we will try to answer as many questions as we possibly can. And with that, I would like to hand over the mic to Remy.
Yes, thank you, Sadaf. So, well, in the next 30 minutes, I will take you on a scientific journey. So I will be talking about UV exposure, vitamin D, and how that influences our health and well-being. So I realized that some of the things that I might be talking about might be familiar to you, but I guess that many of the things that I will discuss are new. So I'll try to explain the things in a very simple way, and hopefully I will succeed in that. That being said, I can talk for hours on this topic, but we have limited time. So I've selected a few key items that I would like to share with you during this webinar. So first, I will give my view, let's say, on what is lighting in relation to health and well-being. So, and then we dive into the main topic of today, vitamin D, where first I will explain, let's say, data on the vitamin D status of, let's say, the population globally. After that, I will discuss the mechanisms. So how does UV interact with our skin and with our health and well-being? And before I dive into, let's say, the safety part, the activity part, I will go a little bit back in time into evolution and talking about the differentiation and the impact on different skin types. And I will have a wrap up at the end where I present some final remarks from experts in the field, and 3 takeaways. So 3 very simple key takeaways that I want you to remember when you leave this webinar. So let's first talk about lighting and health and well-being. You have seen these pictures quite before, right? So we have a visual pathway where we observe brightness, we observe color, and since 20 years we are talking about a non-visual pathway, so the stimulation of the IPRGCs to influence our circadian rhythm. But I think it's not complete. So I think there is another pathway that we need to consider, which is the interaction of light with the skin. The skin is the largest organ that we have in the body, and it's the interface between the outside world and the inner world. And a nice example, of course, that most of you know is the interaction of UV light with synthesis of vitamin D in the skin. And these 3 pathways together, to me, determine how we see, how we feel, and how we perform. So vitamin D, is it actually a problem? So I've been looking at a recent paper from 2023. It's a meta-study on the vitamin D status of people around the world. It's about 8 million data points. And if you take 30 nanograms per milliliter as the threshold value for insufficiency, or sufficiency above that number, then we see that 77% of the population worldwide, on average, has insufficient levels of vitamin D. And this is really a huge number. So I've got the question often, well, vitamin D is probably a problem of the Nordics because of the lower intensity of the sun. But actually, it isn't. So there is little correlation between vitamin D status and latitude. So if we talk about, for instance, the 0 to 20 degree latitude range, still the insufficiency is still above 50%, which is already huge in these regions, right? And the reason, one of the reasons is that if you ever have been in this region, it's extremely hot in the summer. It's extremely humid in the summer. And there is a nice air conditioning inside, so people prefer to stay indoors. And if you go beyond these latitudes, there is hardly any variation. It's between 75 and 85%. So this means that this is actually a global problem. So a reminder, 3/4 of the population has low levels. And the other reason, of course, and we know that from the other discussions that we have when we talk about circadian rhythm, we spend most of our time indoors. And that's also one of the reasons for vitamin D insufficiency. So what do we miss? So we're going to talk about mechanisms. How does it actually work? So this is a classical view of how we show how vitamin D is synthesized in the skin. We have a cholesterol in our skin, which reacts under UVB light. And we, let's say, synthesize pre-vitamin D. And our body temperature is the next catalyst and transforms it to vitamin D. And this is taken up by the blood. It goes to the liver, where it is transformed to 25-hydroxyvitamin D. And then it's transformed a second time to calcitriol in the kidneys. And this is actually the active compound which influences our health and well-being is actually a hormone. So it's good to remember that vitamin D is technically not a vitamin, it's a steroid hormone. So the current view is different. Yeah, so we have been learning a lot in the last decades. And what has been found is that under UV light, we synthesize 30 other vitamin D-like compounds, which are biologically active. Yeah, so also you have other products from the cholesterol on the UV, similar to pre-vitamin D. On the UV, we make different molecules as for vitamin D. So we get a very rich, let's say, cocktail of vitamin D compounds in the skin under sunlight exposure. Now, we're talking a lot often also on supplements. Yeah, so if we take supplements, we ingest it, it's taken up by the gut, and it comes into the bloodstream, where it is also converted in the liver and the kidneys. Yeah? But vitamin D from, let's say, from food is leaving the body very fast, faster than vitamin D synthesized in the skin. And the reason is that it is transported differently in the body. But you can also see that a supplement only contains vitamin D. It does not contain all the other compounds that we synthesize in the skin. So a vitamin D supplement is not a full replacement of UV-induced vitamin D. Very important. So how does vitamin D work on our health and well-being? We have to go and talk about our genes. So the human body has about 25,000 genes. And they basically determine how we look, how we behave, how we feel, how healthy we are. Yeah, and vitamin D regulates about 10%, 2,500 genes. That is the way our vitamin D regulates, let's say, our health and well-being. And well, this is very unique that one compound has so much control over our genes. So it can switch on genes or it can switch off genes. And vitamin D, let's say, sufficiency has been correlated to a wide range of health benefits beyond the classical health effects. So bones, muscles, immune system, which is very known, let's say. But it's also linked to cardiovascular health, metabolic health, and cognitive. So then this is about vitamin D synthesis in the skin. Second part is it's not all. Yeah, if we talk about UV exposure and skin, there are basically 3 different pathways in the skin. We call it the skin-brain axis. Here it's depicted. The first pathway is we can synthesize reactive oxygen species or reactive nitrogen species in the skin. And normally when we talk about reactive oxygen and reactive nitrogen, we think, oh, that could be dangerous, but it isn't. It's dangerous in excess, but in moderation, these are crucial elements to regulate our health and well-being. The second pathway is the absorption of U with chromophores. And vitamin D is one of those chromophores that just absorbs UV light, but there are others. Endorphins might be another one that regulates mood. Not going further in detail on this topic. And a third pathway is nerve endings. So nerve endings in the skin can be directly activated by UV light and transmit, let's say, information to the inner body. So it's mostly a bi-directional pathway between UV skin and the organs, the glands, and the brain. Yeah, so there's really a communication structure. And if we talk about health and well-being, of course, if you go outside, exposed to sunlight, our vitamin D levels are high, and they correlate with health and well-being aspects, but vitamin D can also be a proxy for having these benefits. So it might not be directly related to vitamin D, but it might be related to the other processes working in the skin. So that being said, I'm going a little bit back in history, so to evolution and skin pigmentation. So scientists believe that UV and vitamin D were crucial in the evolution of sea life towards land life. It were the fish that had that could develop a strong bone structure and muscular system that could withstand the high gravity on Earth. Yeah, and very important on Earth is regulation of calcium. So calcium is very rich in seawater, but it's very poor available on land. And vitamin D regulates the absorption of calcium from food into the body. So this is really important. So if it was really so important for the development of land life, then it might still be very important today. So later in time, we see differentiations in skin pigmentation. Yeah? So we have skin type 1 to 6. And I often get questions about the effectivity of UV and vitamin D synthesis. Then we have to go a little bit deeper into the skin. So on the right, we have a picture of the epidermis, which is the top layer of the skin. It consists of 5 layers. But important to know that in the lower layer, the stratum basale, we have the melanocyte cells. And the melanocyte cells contain our intrinsic pigment, melanin. So someone with a darker skin has more melanin in these cells than someone with a skin type. And it's located in the lower layer of the epidermis. If we talk about vitamin D synthesis, it occurs mainly in the layer above the pigment. Yeah, so in the stratum spinosum. So that would mean that in principle, there should not be a lot of difference between the sensitivity of, let's say, a lighter skin compared to a darker skin. And of course, that is good news. But in practice, we often see large differences when we measure vitamin D status. I think a nice study was done in Denmark by Data, where they compared vitamin D status of the Danish inhabitants compared to a Somali immigrant group. Yeah? Going from the winter towards the summer. And yes, indeed, they found large differences in vitamin D levels. Yeah, but they also looked in the parameters that determine how much vitamin D you synthesize. So they looked at the time spent outdoors and the skin coverage. Yeah? These are 2 important factors that determine the actual status. And basically, they concluded that the differences in vitamin D status were solely determined by these 2 factors. So by clothing and outdoor presence. And the difference between sensitivity of the skin of, let's say, a skin type 1, 2 compared to a skin type 5 was about 20%, but it was not significant. It's mainly determined by behavior, and that is really good news. Yeah? That's also for a wide variation in skin pigmentation, UV is very effective. So now we come to how much and when. And safety first. Yeah, so when we talk about safety and UV exposure, we have to look at the most sensitive person. Yeah, so the most sensitive person UV exposure is someone with skin type 1. So very pale skin, red hair, freckles, typically. So, and then we talk about SED. SED is a term which is not known in lighting, but it's a term that we use for sunburn. Yes, SED stands for standard erythema weighted dose, and erythema is actually just sunburn. So we weigh UV with a sensitivity, and then we can calculate based on the time that we have the exposure a certain dose. So 100 joules, we call that 1 SED. So skin type 1 person starts to get initially a very light sunburn if it is exposed to 2 SED within 24 hours. Yeah, so if we talk, so we have to stay below that. If we talk about indoor regulations or regulations from the WHO, so the World Health Organization, they say that if you are stay below a certain dose, then you have no risk. Yeah. So, and that level is 0.33. So it's already far below the sunburn threshold for a very sensitive person. So if we want to apply UV indoors, we have to stay below this number. Yeah. Then, of course, can we have an effective dose when we need to stay below this number? So then I looked at regulations. Yes. So what is the advice for different health organizations? How much time do I have to spend outdoors to get sufficient vitamin D? And I looked at advice from the Dutch organization, the German, the French, the UK, and the US organizations. And I'm trying to find, let's say, a kind of an average. Yeah? I will depict it here. So the general advice for having sufficient vitamin D is to spend 2 to 3 times a week, 15 minutes outdoors, around noon, or between 10 and 3, because then the sun is highest, in spring and summer. And then you have to expose at least face, neck, and hands, and preferably also the lower arms. So what I have been doing for over 2 years is each month, several times, I've been collecting data. You see a picture of me with all kinds of sensors on my face and on my arms to record what would be the average exposure when I do this in these months. And yes, so we found that we have an average exposure of 0.28 SED, which is good news because this value is below, let's say, the safety threshold value. So there's no risk if you have this exposure. So it was a good advice of the health organizations. And if you do the same thing in the, let's say, in the winter period and the fall, then basically the UV exposure is very low. So in October and March, you might have some, but in January and December, it's practically zero. So if you want, and in the summer we advise, please go outside, but in the winter, of course, it is not possible. Yeah. So what should we do in the winter, for instance? So if the advice is 2 to 3 times 50 minutes, and 50 minutes is 0.28 SED, and I have in an office space 5 days, I can allow for an exposure of 0.14 SED per day. Yeah, and that is also something that we tested indoors. Can we realize that? Again, the sensors. So that would be a solution according to the recommendations of health organizations. And this 0.14, yeah, it's a factor of 10, 20 lower than the sensitivity of the most sensitive person, and it's well below the safety limit. So it's safe to do this indoors. Then, effectivity. We performed a randomized clinical control trial together with the Sunderland Hospital in the UK and with Manchester University. So here you see a picture of the luminaire. So it gave white light, but some of them gave UV light, and some of the luminaires did not give UV light. So the participants didn't know, and it was placed in an office space. Yeah, and the average daily dose was again, here you have the number again, 0.14 SED, as we wanted. And we found a significant benefit. Yeah? So over an 8-week period, we saw, let's say, an improved status compared to the control group. And it's also published, it's an open access paper, so you can find it on the internet or in the chat. And the conclusion was that even an ultra low dose of UV is effective in reducing the winter decline in vitamin D status. So that's very, very important that it's safe and also effective. Some final remarks. So just recently, there is a paper out. It's at the bottom. I will put it in the chat. Beneficial health effects of ultraviolet radiation. Expert report. Yeah, it's a very nice to read report and very complete. They said that there was compelling evidence on health benefits of UVR exposure. Yeah. And they said it's now time to balance, to give public health policies and change that a little bit to advise to have a balanced, say, advice on sunlight exposure, on UV exposure. And I have to explain it in let's say, in a different way. So here you see on the right a picture. We call it hormesis or biphasic dose response. And on the x-axis, you have a dose of a certain ingredient. So it can be a vitamin, can be a mineral, can be foods, can be exercising, but it can also be UV. Yeah, and on the y-axis, you have the response of this dose. The top part, you have a negative effect. Yeah, so going up, you have more negative effects, and going down, you will get positive effects of this dose. And with most of the things is that either you have a deficiency or a toxicity, but you can have both. Yeah? And in the middle part, you have an optimum region. And you know this by an expression. Yeah? So too little of anything or too much of anything is not good. And we know the extremes, right? So we know at the deficiency side, we can get rickets, so the deformed bones of children. And at the too much side, we have the skin damage, right? But if we increase the dose, we get increasing benefits, yeah? Up to a certain point, where if we still increase the dose, we get additional decreasing benefits. So this is about having a balance, because people think always in linear relationships, but most things in nature don't follow a linear relationship. They follow a biphasic dose. Very important to get the balance right. And there are changes now in health organizations, where, for instance, in the Netherlands, we say the health organizations say, please enjoy, but don't get burned. Yeah, and another proposal, or let's say idea of these experts was to explore the preventive potential of artificial UVR exposure, to get the balance right, specifically in the winter time. And that is a nice bridge, of course, to our product VitaUp, because VitaUp may support these findings of these experts. And how did we do that? So on the right, you see a picture on the gray. It's the spectrum in the UV part of the sun at noon. And the orange part is, according to the CIE, let's say, the action spectrum. Yeah? So we synthesize vitamin D in our skin in this small area between 300 and 320, basically. What we try to do is not optimize for the sensitivity, but optimize how nature does it. Yeah? So we try to mimic specifically with VitaUp this area, which is also present in natural daylight. Yeah? We could go to a lower value to optimize it, but then we have radiation, which is topically not available in outdoor light. That's not something that we want at this moment. So then finally, 3 simple key takeaways. First one. So UVB exposure synthesizes vitamin D, but it gives you way more types of vitamin D than supplements. Second one, there are other things happening in the skin with UVB, which have potential health benefits and influence our well-being. Second point. And thirdly, yeah, even a low dose of UVB can provide indoors. It's safe, absolutely safe and effective. three very small key takeaways. And with that, I will hand it over to Sadaf again. We're talking about VitaUp product. I think you need to take control.
Yes, I'm going to take control. And thank you so much, Rami, for your insights on the matter of UVB. I think these were really cool insights for me and everybody else. And I'm sure all of you guys would have so many questions. So please feel free to put them in the chat box, and we will try to handle them at the end of the webinar after we're done with the content of the presentation. So now let's switch the gears a little bit from UVB, and let's talk about Philips VitaUp, the amazing groundbreaking product in which this technology is embedded. Just give me a second. Yeah, here we go. So we launched Philips VitaUp at the start of the year, perfect time. It was a winter period, lack of sunshine, and this product seemed like the perfect solution to the problems that Remy identified, which happened due to the lack of vitamin D. And the idea behind this product was to launch a product that is both easy, accessible, and effective in delivering the benefits of UVB. And we designed this product in a way that offers a controlled dose of UVB in a safe and effective manner. Also, of course, one of the standout features of the product is that it provides wellness indoors in a safe and effective way. But also the design of the module itself makes it very flexible in terms of different applications. So as you can see, this product comes in an SNS form factor that allows you to integrate it into the ceiling directly or into a luminaire. And as you can see on the screen, there are different applications in which we can see VitaUp. So basically, any space which does not have natural sunlight, VitaUp is a perfect product to be in that space, be it in an office setting where there is more and more focus building up on well-being of the employees and healthier workspace. Also in education, when we of course want the next generation of people to be healthy and in the best shape. And of course, healthcare, because the target market there also needs the benefits of UVB. And if I just move on to what benefits Philips VitaUp provides. So of course, apart from providing the benefits of UVB in an indoor setting, in a controlled and safe setting, that is a standout benefit. But in addition to that, the simple design of the module, it makes it really flexible for different applications, be it in marine or schools, as we mentioned in the previous slides. But also this product allows for DALI and Master Connect compatibility, which allows the luminaires to be much more flexible. It gives much more control to the luminaire makers, and together the combination of the simple designing, the biological effect, and the connectivity factor makes VitaUp an excellent proposition for luminaires makers if they want to differentiate themselves in the lighting space. Now, I'm just going to go over some key questions that I get when I present this product, and I'm just going to echo what Remy earlier mentioned. So how did we actually design VitaUp? So as Remy mentioned earlier, as per World Health Organization, WHO, the minimum risk exposure level, which is considered safe for people, is 0.33 SED per day. It can go as high as 1 SED per day, and in a hot summer day, it can go up to 3 to 4 SED per day. And this is equals to the recommended UVB exposure, let's say in summer period, is a lunchtime walk 2 to 3 times every 15 minutes per week. So if there's sun outside, please go out. We don't want to compete with Mother Nature in any way, and that is the best form of UVB exposure. However, because we're already in autumn and I don't see a lot of sun outside, so we can only see where we're going to be in the next 3 months. And in those hard winter months, I think biological products like VitaUp and VitaUp can offer a lot of benefits. So, considering the recommendation that we got from WHO, we designed the target of VitaUp. And we designed it to be very safe because, of course, that was one thing that we wanted to be. We did not want anybody to get harmed by the product. And so the dose of VitaUp equals to 0.14 SED, which is way below the minimum risk exposure level determined by WHO. The other question that I get a lot is it really effective? And to this, I will again echo to the study that Remy mentioned earlier, which was conducted in Sunderland Hospital. I'm not going to go into the detail of that. The link of the article is already pasted in the chat. And I really recommend you to go through it to understand more about the product. But just to conclude, low doses of VitaUp that were used in the trial were actually seen as effective in supporting vitamin D generation and also in reducing the winter decline in the vitamin D status of the participants who were given the placebo product. The safety aspect I have already highlighted before, but now I would like to go into another detail because this is another question that I see a lot, that if VitaUp is actually very safe. And to that, I would say that yes, it is super duper safe. It's very difficult to harm yourself with a product like VitaUp with such low dose. And this product is a risk group 0 product at 75 centimeter. So apart from the low dose and the product being risk group 0, the product is also integrated with a proximity sensor. And if you get too close to the product, the UVB light will go off. So like I said earlier, it's actually very difficult to harm yourself with a product like VitaUp because of these factors that are listed on the slides. Now, another question that I really get a lot, and I'm sure we're going to get a lot more questions after this session, is that how do we effectively integrate VitaUp into our luminaire? And in order to do that, we need to use dial-up simulations in order to determine what is the right dose of UVB that would be good for your application or the room. So dial-up simulation, they require the module's beam shape that is provided by IES. And in this way, you will be able to calculate how much dose of VitaUp or UVB is needed exactly in a room. And to just put things in perspective and to give you an example, let's say there is an office space of 11 by 22 meter with a height of 2.8 meter. And you place VitaUp in a grid pattern with a distance of 1.8. In this kind of a setting, at desk level, assuming that the desk is 75 centimeter from the ceiling, you'll be able to deliver 4 milliwatt per meter square on that desk level. So just to give you an idea of how VitaUp can be integrated into a luminaire or the ceiling in an effective manner. Now with that, and in the interest of time, I would like to draw your attention to a few key takeaways. So number one is UVB exposure, of course, as said by Remy as well. It is very important to life, not only humans, but I think all living beings. And it provides a lot of health and well-being benefits that go beyond that of vitamin D. However, it is important to have it in a controlled setting as, any extreme can be harmful for humans. The second thing that I want to leave you with is that the product is actually very safe and it provides UVB exposure in a controlled setting that is both safe and effective, as I've shown in the previous slides. Third thing, again, just to reiterate about the flexibility of the product, it can be used as a standalone equipment, which can be plugged in into a ceiling, or it can also be integrated into a luminaire for enhanced flexibility. And the last thing that I would like to leave you with is that VitaUp is not a medical device. It is not intended to treat, cure, or prevent any diseases. So we should stay away from these things. It's a wellness product. It does support the production of vitamin D and other benefits that are delivered by UVB, but still, it is not a medical device. And if there is a severe deficiency of vitamin D, VitaUp is not a solution, and those people should seek medical care. So with that, I would like to wrap up the slides, and I would just like to leave you with one key message that right now, in this day and time, we are at an intersection of well-being and technology. And products like VitaUp or VitaUp are an excellent way to show how these technologies can have a profound impact on the lives of the people who are using it. And with that, I would like to open the floor for questions. We have around 15 minutes, let's say, so let's try to tackle as many questions as we can in that time frame. Over to you, Vlada.
Yeah, and I will help you moderate those questions. Thank you, Sadaf. Thank you, Remy, and hello, everybody. I am the Marcom manager for Signify OEM, and my name is Vlada. So, very interesting topic, and we already have some interesting questions. Let's see where we start. Remy, you might want to pick this one. It's about skin aging, and specifically, does UV exposure cause skin aging?
When we talk about skin aging, then indeed UV can cause, let's say, the wrinkly phase or the sagging of the skin. Yeah? So the structure of the skin can be damaged. It's called photooxidation of the collagen and elastin fibers in the skin. And these, they are positioned very deep in the skin layers. They are not in the epidermis, they are much lower. And UVB does not reach these layers. Yeah? So it's basically UVA under oxygen, photooxidation, which cause aging of the skin.
Thank you.
So if I understand correctly, it's the UVA that contributes majorly to the skin aging and not UVB. Okay. Thank you so much.
Something not similar, but a bit in the same, around the same topic is again about UV exposure, and it's linked to skin cancer. What about UV exposure and skin cancer? What can you tell us about it?
Big question. Big answer also. Say some decades ago, the advice was that UV causes skin cancer, right? So, but you see a mind shift in health organizations. So also, as I said, Dutch health organization, I think other health organizations will follow. Enjoy, but don't get skin burn. Yeah? So skin burn is more related to skin cancer. But I think it's always interesting to look at data because the correlations between UV and skin cancer are not that conclusive, yeah? Which is not known to the public, but a lot of scientists are a little bit puzzled about this correlation. Yeah. So if you give an example, for instance, in Australia, skin cancer rates are very high. But the majority of the population is from British descent. Yeah, so there's a lot of sun, but the skin pigmentation is not very well adapted for sun. So you see high skin cancer rates. So that seems to be a correlation. If you look in Europe, for instance, if you look which countries have the highest skin cancer rates, and it's Iceland, it's Norway, it's Sweden. Yeah, so That's a little bit strange, but maybe they go to Spain in the summer and get a sunburn because their skin is not adapted to sunlight, right? There are some studies that compare, for instance, people working outdoors compared to people working indoors. Yeah? So people working outdoors have 3 to 9 times higher exposure of UV compared to people working indoors. Yeah? That seems logical. If you look at skin cancer rates, then people working indoors have twice the risk compared to people working outdoors. So that doesn't seem to fit, say, to the idea that we have that UV causes skin cancer. There is much more. Also, when there is a large database of skin biopsy samples, I think it was a study in the UK where they analyzed these skin cancer biopsies. And basically, if you look deeply into the tissue, you can characterize which kind of defects are visible. So you can see if it's a UV induced damage of the cell. And what they found is they could only find in 11% of the skin cancers a defect which could have been caused by UV. So what are the other 89%? So there is way more than UV alone. And I think it's fair to say, don't get a sunburn if we talk about skin cancer, but UV is also very high. And as said, we are far below the levels of skin cancer in our applications.
Thank you. There was quite a question and quite an answer. So I'll give you a break and revert to Sadaf. Sadaf, about how to do a planning. So how many modules is there a reference have to be planned into a room? And also something related about the designing guide. Where do we find it? But let's start with the first.
Let's start with the first one. So it is not a very straightforward answer. And in order to determine how many modules are required in a room, I will need different information, starting with the dimensions of the room. That being said, if you provide me that information, I can work with my team here in Eindhoven and give you a rough plan of how many VitaUps are needed for that application. And the second question was around the design and guide. So it is available on our e-catalog. If you're unable to find it, please reach out to your local representative or myself. My name is Sadaf Sheikh. So just reach out to me and I'll be happy to provide you with the relevant material.
Yeah, we can also share some of these documents in the email.
Yeah, we can also share it in the email. I can share the data sheet and the design and guide, so you all can find it easily. Let me just make a note of that.
Thank you. Remy, can UVB be transmitted by the sun through an office window?
No.
So me sitting in the next to the window doesn't.
No. So all window glass not transmitting UVB, even if you're sitting very close to the window. It also filters a little bit of UVA, but some UVA is still passing on.
Thank you. One comment together with a question. So it is good to see the scientific studies done together with hospitals and other research groups. Is this research also leading to integration of this need, in example, building standards or public recommendations?
Not that I know of. Remember that there were discussions in the well community to include vitamin D in a way, but that has not been finalized. But the change indeed with the advice of the experts might lead to a different and new discussion in finding the balance.
Again, I would just like to add to Remy that this product is, I would say, still very new for the category. We are still trying to create knowledge, as you can see, about the benefits of UVB, how it relates to vitamin D, because right now there is a lot of confusion and skepticism about UVB. So we do see it that in the future it will join VitaUp in the well standards as well, and we are constantly communicating with the relevant people there. But to answer your question in simple terms, right now, no, there are no regulations or standards around it, but we do see it coming in the forthcoming years.
Thank you. Now, Remy, I hope you understand this question better than me. I think that for sure will be the case, but what is the RG?
Risk group.
Risk group,
Within the radius of 75 centimeters.
yes.
So risk group level. So so within lighting standards, you have to fulfill certain regulations. So you have the photobiological standards, which describe indoor lighting has to fulfill these requirements in the UV range, in the blue light hazard range, in the infrared range. So you need to stay below certain limits. And you have different classifications. So risk group 0, 1, and 2, I think, is available in the different spectral regions. So risk group 0 is, let's say, you can use it unlimitedly, even for 24 hours a day.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I hope it answers.
I hope so too, and otherwise please reach out to your key account manager. We have quite some questions incoming and really interesting ones, so I will keep on going.
Please do.
Is there any study, is there any study that studies the exposure time on different skin types?
So there was a study that I mentioned, and I think
Is that the one we inserted in the chat?
no, that's the data study.
We
But
can send the
I
link.
think there are studies indeed that study various skin types, but I've not at hand at least.
But the study you do mention, we can also send it in the links after the webinar. Can the doses be changed in function of the season? Is there a smart system that steers the module?
At this point, that functionality is not available, but we can look into it. We can have a discussion over it, and if it makes sense, yes, we can definitely explore it. But first, I will need to have a deeper discussion about what different applications you are thinking of.
Okay. Remy, is the decline in vitamin D status during the winter not a normal process?
That's a good question. So I don't think it's a natural process, but I think we have to then go back to evolution again. So very long time ago, there was plenty of food available during spring and summer. Yeah? So we had enough food. And what happens is that people gained weight in the summer, because there was plenty of food available, and there was less food available in the winter. But in the winter, we could tap into the energy reserves of the fat cells that we have created. And so we have, let's say, a cycling in body mass over the season. And important to know that we store vitamin D that we synthesize in the summer in our fat cells. Yeah? So we can tap into that in a later moment in time. And we see that, for instance, people exercising, burning fat, what you see is that their vitamin D levels, they rise without UV exposure. There's that vitamin D becomes available in the bloodstream. We also see, for instance, that people which have high body mass index, they need more UV or they need more supplements to reach the same blood levels in vitamin D, because vitamin D is absorbed by the fat cells. So it's not available to help you anyway in health and well-being. So I think, let's say, years ago, or many years ago, we had a higher capacity of storing vitamin D in the summer because we increase our body weight, and we release it in the winter. And what happens then is you flatten the curve. What we do nowadays, we do actually the reverse. Right? If we're going into the summer, we want to lose weight because we have to fit in the bikini and swimsuit, right? And in the winter, we are a little bit tired, so we don't do exercising. So we gain weight in the winter and we lose weight in the summer. That's the totally opposite what we should do. Make optimum use of our vitamin D. Yeah, so we have less capacity to store in the summer. And in the winter, we just take it out of our bloodstream because it will be stored in our fat cells. So that will increase the amplitude of the vitamin D status over the season. It's a long answer.
And with that, I think we have time for one more question.
Yep, that is true. What is the optimal distance between the device and person to get 0.14? And what is effect if distance is doubled or tripled?
Can I answer that? Yeah, so the 0.14 SED is designed with these VitaUp modules for people in a sitting position. So if you sit for 8 hours in the space, then you will get the 0.14 SED. The advantage is of the system that we have developed, the multi-grid system, is when I walk away from my desk, which was different in the study because it was a free-fall standing luminaire. If I walk away from the desk, I will stand up and I will have a higher exposure. Yeah? So the 0.14 is actually a minimum level that we can get. If we stand up and walk in the room, we get a higher exposure, roughly double if we stand for 8 hours in the space. Normally it's a mix, and it's designed for standard rooms, 275 or 3 meters.
We are out of time, but I see a great suggestion here, which we will follow up on because there are lots of questions still incoming, which is lovely. Somebody suggests to put the Q&A answers in an email and send them together with all the links.
Exactly the same thought.
So we will definitely do that because there's lots of great questions here. So because we're out of time, we do have to wrap up. So I'll switch back to Sadaf and Remy for a last word.
Yes, so I would just like to thank you for your participation. I know it's an information overdose. We learned a lot about UVB technology, about its benefit, different application, how much, when, the evolution. And then we also talked about the product a little bit, the application, how you can successfully integrate it into the design of your choice. So I hope that it just leaves you with a lot of ideas, a lot of curiosity to learn more about the topic. And if you have any more questions, please reach out to your local representative or Remy or me. I think we are easy to find. And yeah, I will look forward to more inquisitive questions from your end.
Yeah, from my side, thank you for joining this webinar, and I hope you still remember the 3 key takeaways. And if you have further questions, please let us know.
Thank you, and we wish you a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.